Blog Talk Radio.
The following broadcast is brought to you by the iGolf Sports Network.
Golf Talk Live is sponsored by the iGolf Sports Network and Golf Tips Magazine. Here's Andrew to tell you more about our sponsors.
iGolf Sports is a live stream broadcast and media production company providing quality programming designed to attract the golfing enthusiast. And Golf Tips, the game's most in-depth instruction magazine, including reviews on the latest equipment, tips from top teaching professionals, all designed to help you improve from tee to green. Welcome to Golf Talk Live with your host, Ted Odorico. Join Ted each week as he speaks with some of the best in golf. This week's special guest will join us a bit later. But first up is another great discussion on Coach's Corner. So let's introduce tonight's Coach's Corner panel.
All right, good evening, everybody, and once again, welcome to Golf Talk Live. I'm your host, Ted Odorico, and we've got a great show for you tonight. As mentioned in the intro, we're going to be starting off here with another great panel discussion on Coach's Corner, and I'll introduce both of the professionals that are joining me tonight here in just a moment. And then a little bit later on, I'm going to be joined by two special guests, actually, Mark Lukenbill. He's the founder and CEO of MPRUV Sports. And also joining him is Anh-Dao, who is their head of coaching and community. And you may recall she was on here as a Co-Evans Scholar of the Year last season. So she'll be joining, and she's now involved with MPRUV Sports and MPRUV Golf. So they'll be joining us a little bit later on. But first up, as I mentioned, we're going to be starting things off with Coach's Corner, and we've got a great discussion. But let me introduce both panelists, and then we'll get into the discussion of the evening. First up, of course, is John Hughes. He's a PGA Master Professional and also the Honorary President of the North Florida PGA Section. And he's also the recipient of the 2013 PGA of America's Professional Development Award, as well as the 2023 North Florida PGA Section Teacher and Coach of the Year. He's also a Senior Editor and Golf Tips Magazine Top 25 Instructor, and also part of the advisory staff for Golf Tips. Also rounding out the panel, of course, is Jamie Leno-Zimron. She's a Class A LPGA teacher professional, a 6th degree Aikido black belt, somatic psychologist, corporate speaker, and mind-body fitness trainer. Graduated Phi Beta Kappa from Stanford University and is also the creator of Ki Golf and the Centered Way. So, John and Jamie, welcome to Coach's Corner here on Golf Talk Live.
Happy to
Thanks,
be here,
Ted.
And glad to be with you, John. Nice to connect again.
All right. Always happy to have a couple of great professionals on the Coach's Corner panel segment, and you two are certainly rank very highly in favorability, certainly not only from the host, but also the listeners as well. So I'm glad to have both of you joining tonight. All right, we're going to talk about golf schools a little bit and 7 things to look for. So if you're interested in golf school, what I mean by that is not just your typical instruction or even necessarily group instruction, but if you're looking to attend a golf school, there's some things that you might need to know. And I'm going to be very particular about some things, so I just want to sort of caution the panelists tonight so that we don't sort of jump ahead of the discussion, is I'm going to be very specific in laying out what particular topic in the type of questions I'm going to be asking. So try not to sort of jump ahead if you don't mind. Just so that we can sort of stay on point. And I'm going to start, if you don't mind, in the order that I introduced you guys, and that being John. First thing, one of the things I think is curriculum. And, you know, when we're looking for a golf school, for those of you that are out there that want to attend a golf school, this is something that needs to obviously, I think first and foremost, needs to be considered. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that. What should the student be looking for as far as the curriculum? And to ensure that it matches up for their needs. Go ahead, John.
Sure. Thanks, Ted, for the opportunity. Again, always a pleasure. Jamie, great to reconnect with you as well. As far as curriculum goes, what we're basically talking about is 2 things: the format in which you're going to receive the golf school content as well as the content. Number one, is it a group setting, and is that something you're looking for? Maybe you're a little shy, a little embarrassed about where you may or may not be, and you want to share that experience with somebody. Maybe there's 2 or 3 of you that are trying to go to all the same place at the same time. There's a lot of different reasons to do the group school. For others, they may need a little bit more customization, a little bit more detail to the content, and they'll opt for a one-to-one or even bring a spouse or a fellow golfer with them and do a 2-to-1. When it comes to curriculum, though, it's not only the format, it's content delivery, and the content has a lot to do with what your needs are. And if you have specific needs, you should be seeking out a specific school that offers the specific content you're looking for. For example, if you're needing a lot of short game work and that's all you want to work on, going to a golf school that only features short game as part of the agenda, not all of the agenda, may not be a good fit for you. You're looking for speed, distance. There are golf schools that specialize just in that. There are golf schools who do a lot of different things but will have special dates for that type of content. What I always suggest to the clients that come to my golf schools is really sit down and examine what your specific improvement needs are, and as well as some budget, which I'm sure we'll get into later, and then make a determination which curriculum is going to be best for you. And I would tell people, not necessarily you get what you pay for, you're going to get more out of a one-to-one than a group, if for the most part. But if that's something from a budget standpoint of view, you're just going to need to dig a little deeper for that, because there's a lot of different options out there.
Yeah, and there is so many other – there's a lot of variables, Jamie, when you're trying to piece something together like this. John really laid out a lot of the curriculum, but I think it boils down to 2 things. I'm going to ask you a different question, but if you want to add anything or expand on it, you're welcome to. But I think it really boils down to doing your research. So let me just ask a quick question here. Outside of the curriculum, if you want to add anything to it, by all means, go ahead before you answer your question. And that is really instructor qualifications. That's another important factor as well. It's not like just going for an individual lesson or even a couple of lessons. You're investing, in many cases, a lot more financial resources to attend a school. So it's important to make sure you do your due diligence to find out who the person or persons involved in that school are. So that's your question, is to sort of unpack instructor qualifications, what they should be looking for, but also if you want to add anything to the curriculum conversation as well, go ahead there first.
Well, I think they dovetail in certain ways because, as you said, I think it's really important that people take some time to do due diligence and research when they're looking for a golf school, because it is a big investment financially and time-wise. And, people are pinning a lot of hopes on going to a golf school. It's like, I really want to improve, and you should know what it is you're looking to improve so that you can orient your choice of the school. But like I said, a lot of hopes are pinned on doing this intensive thing of a golf school. And what John had to say about, what's the content and what are your needs. So getting those things matched up. In terms of the instructors' qualifications, people may think automatically that, you're looking for someone who's won these or those tournaments, or, where did they play in college, or have they played on tour, or all this kind of stuff. And that can be important because an instructor's playing experience is certainly important. But I think even more important, or at least I would say on a par, if not more important than those things, are what is the instructor's orientation? How do they approach teaching? Are they very tech-minded? Are they into using a lot of technology? Are they, in my case, for example, I'm very holistic-minded in my approach, and I include fitness. I include a whole kind of body-mind approach. If that's something you're looking for, sort of golf technique, golf technology, or those things and more, or within a kind of a larger context. So what the instructor's orientation is, what the instructor's passion is in teaching, and are they passionate about teaching itself? Because the whole matter of pedagogy, shall we say, teaching, how do you teach, how do you communicate, Do you match up your communication style with the individual students? These kinds of things are just as important as a person's sort of playing history in terms of their qualifications. And I don't think people necessarily think about that enough. But that's where it's going to make a really big difference. And it's also the case that sometimes people are better teachers than they are actually players. And some players may be terrific competitors and champions, but they don't have the pedagogical or teaching expertise. So those things aren't always matched up. And I think that that's important for people to have in mind. Because, again, I just think that people go too often with looking at the actual golfing wins or credentials, and that may not necessarily be what's going to help them get the most from that instructor or that instructional staff at a golf school.
That's a really great point that you raise, Jamie. And again, I'm not belittling anybody's certifications or qualifications, but it's like a doctor. You can have 20 letters after your name, and certainly that means you're well versed in a lot of topics. But again, if you're not able to perform some of the things or articulate some of the things that are necessary, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're better than a doctor that maybe only has a couple of letters after their name. And you're right. I think the communication, how the person learns, back to the point really that's being made is you need to do your homework. Just because somebody's popular or well-known in the industry, because there are a lot of, coaches and whatnot out there who run golf schools or run various similar type programs who never played on tour, never were strong players themselves, but have a very good understanding of the game and certainly from a teaching standpoint are able to get that message across. So there is a lot of, I guess, as we said, due diligence that needs to go into both of those areas, is what's being taught, how it's being taught, and by who it's being taught, and to be sure that the person or persons involved are getting those messages across that you need to receive in order to improve your game. So I think that was a great point that you raised, and I think you really hit it on the head. John, I'm going to come back to you on this, and this seems like a no-brainer, but again, you have to, as part of the due diligence, and it's accommodations. What is being offered? It's another, when choosing a golf school, what accommodations are they offering? You're paying out, a lot of money in some cases, and, are you staying at the local Holiday Inn Express, or are you, going to a resort where they're offering? So I think those factors have to be put in, and again, obviously it refers to budget as well. Give me your thoughts on that, and what you think, again, somebody should be considering when it comes to their lodging, and what else should be included in that as well.
Great question that really doesn't have a definitive answer because everybody's taste in accommodations is different. I conduct commuter schools for the most part for one simple reason. I don't have control over your accommodations experience. All I can do is, if you're paying me for your accommodations, now all of a sudden I'm held responsible for your experience there, and I'm just not there to control that situation. So what I do with my golf school clients is provide them some recommendations of properties where I've stayed, number one, but more importantly, number two, I know the experience is at a level that meets my standards or exceeds my standards, which is typically in line with what somebody who has a little bit bigger budget would want. But everybody has their own idea of what accommodations are, and it runs the gambit of, hey, I'm going to bring my travel trailer with me to where is the closest five-star hotel. I don't want the resort. I just want the hotel. And in the I've now been in the golf school business over 24 years, the requests and the ideas of what accommodations runs the full gambit. I think what you've got to do from a due diligence standpoint of view is, number one, what is your budget? Number two, if accommodations are included with the golf school, what's the direct connection between the golf school and the accommodations? Is there one? Because the experience that you have at that accommodations obviously is being not even recommended. It's almost being mandated by that golf school. Do you have a choice of accommodations? Do you really have to take their accommodations, or can you pick your own? That's always, to me, a critical point. And sometimes with people, it's a budgetary point. But as far as also your due diligence, where are you in regards to the location of the golf school? I've had so many people opt for a little bit cheaper Airbnb or a little bit different type of branded hotel, thinking what they were saving in cost was going to be far exceeding anything else, and they end up being not 15 minutes away, but an hour away due to the lack of investigation of traffic patterns, the lack of investigation of construction going on with roads. So it turns out to be an absolute disaster, even though you've done what you think to be correct for your budget. Spending the extra couple of dollars getting you a little closer may have been just a little bit more convenient, which leads to the last point I'd share with people. When you're talking about accommodations, it's not only about what you expect as far as comfort level, it is about convenience. At the end of a golf school day, you are going to be fatigued. And being able to go to a place that's conveniently located, that is comfortable, is by far the most important thing based on what you believe to be your standard. And you've got to stay within that, because I've seen some golf schools go fantastic until someone goes back to their accommodations and the experience there was soured. And that's why I try to stay out of it. As an operator, I'd rather you choose it. This way I can be the shoulder you cry on and then provide you some help if you decide to come back or you got to make that change in the middle. Doesn't happen often. It's probably happened 2 or 3 times in the 24 years I've been in the business doing it. But the real key there is what's your par level? Stay within it, look for convenience, and make sure that it's comfortable for you.
Yeah, well said. And I think as far as accommodations are concerned, obviously a number of resorts have schools available through there, so they're obviously wanting to have people stay at the resort and have an overall experience in addition to the golf instruction that's being offered through the schools. But I think it's important to, again, I hate to keep throwing this phrase out there, but do your due diligence. Look for reviews. See what other people are saying about those accommodations. And if there are options of offering, as you said, through recommendations or other locations, make sure that you investigate to see where are they located in relation to where you're going to the school, so that you're not, as you said, getting stuck in difficult traffic patterns and things, and especially when you're tired at the end of the day, and now you've got to battle rush hour traffic or something to get back to to your bed basically, or what have you. And also you want to look at what food and things like that are being offered. Those need to be considered as well. If you're not going to a resort and you're staying, you want to make sure that the accommodations are going to be in an area that have a lot of food options, restaurants and things like that, and other amenities that could be offered outside of a typical resort. Jamie, we always say location. That is something that also has to be considered. Obviously, golf schools nowadays are offered virtually everywhere in all corners of the country. But I think there's a few factors that might need to be considered. Obviously, climate is one, depending on the time of year that you're going, but also depending on where you are from. I mean, if you're someone that's out in the West Coast and you're playing in more like a desert conditions or cooler climate, you may not necessarily want to go to, for instance, Florida and have it, and I'm not knocking Florida, obviously they got some phenomenal schools, but it's a different game that you're playing in that climate than what you are maybe if you're in Arizona or something like that, or vice versa. So I think you want to find a school. It's nice to go and travel, but maybe you want to find a school that best represents the type of play you're going to be involved in. What are your thoughts here as far as locations?
Well, that's a really good point, because somebody may be interested, for example, in learning how to play links golf. How do you play certain shots in a links situation? Or maybe having golf courses, for example, on the West Coast are certainly quite different from the East Coast in terms of more open, less like on the East Coast, you've got a lot narrow fairways, more woods, trees, coming in, and it's a lot different on the West Coast. So I think that is something that people need to take into consideration. Obviously, the climate and the budget in terms of travel and accommodations, but it's also what kind of golf do you want to play, or are you just kind of wanting to generically work on your swing or certain types of shots? Are you wanting to practice those things on certain kinds of grass or in certain kinds of conditions? So I think people need to think about that and not just kind of show up and go, oh, I didn't think about that. What are my real needs, or what is it that I'm looking for in my game? So, so I think that those are really important considerations. Something else in terms of like location. Some of my favorite golf schools that I've run and been part of have been where I guess you could call it more of a resort situation, but not necessarily a very, fancy or expensive one,
right.
but one where there can be kind of a community building experience. And what I mean is that there's a nice enough, and I call it good enough. Like psychologists talk about good enough mothering. You got good enough accommodations. You're comfortable. It's nice. It's close, and people's rooms are somewhat near each other. Maybe you're eating together in the same dining room, and you can walk pretty much, or just ride a golf cart over to the practice area. Is there a golf course there? Personally, I like to have the practice area and the golf course all available because I like to do, putting green, chipping green, and range work, as well as some indoor sessions where we're working on some things indoors, and then also be able to get out and play. So you're probably going to talk, maybe I don't want to get ahead there, but I think that if you can have accommodations, eating, and practice, and also getting out to play all in one, and there certainly are those kinds of places where golf schools are held. For me, that's something as an instructor and as a participant, I think is important, because it's nice to be having a bonded experience with the other people in the school and with the instructors. And again, budget's all a factor as well. But personally, those have been, for me, the most successful golf schools. They've been the best time. And people just have so much fun, have such a good time, feel really connected, and they're right there at the golf course. So they're just kind of, it's a real immersion, a golf immersion experience, shall we say.
Yeah, and that's an excellent point as well. I mean, there's a lot of what you might refer to an more intimate experience is really what you're getting at. I mean, again, some of the larger resorts where they might have 4 golf courses available and that are certainly fine and certainly incredible facilities, but they tend to be busier and even though you're there with a group perhaps, and if you like that, then that's great. But if you're looking for a more intimate, where certainly you have the amenities that are many of the larger resorts have, but it's, again, a scaled-down version, meaning that there's not as many people there. It's more private, but again, it's still very affordable. I know there's a lot of those up in the Arizona area, for instance, and California. There's some as well, and other areas out in the West, and there certainly is some here in the East Coast as well. So, yeah, I think sometimes, and again, it can be very, very reasonable, again, depending on what budget you're looking for, but sometimes that's a great experience in itself, is you're kind of having the feel of that sort of resort, but at the same time, you also kind of feel like there's more of an intimate connection as well with the others there and the facility as well. It's kind of, like a home away from home, as opposed to feeling like you're part of a big community. So sometimes that's a great thing as well. So it's a great point there. Definitely something to be considered.
I think you mentioned the 2 really operative words, and one is intimate and the other is affordable. And for me, at least personally, maybe it's personal preference, but I find that most people really seem to get the most out of their golf school experience when it's been an intimate, connected experience and affordable as nice too.
Yeah, again, well said. And we're going to talk a little bit about price. We're not going to get into the actual numbers, but John, this is something, obviously was alluded to a little bit earlier on. So this is something considering the price of tuition, if you will. We want to make sure that we're finding it up there. Obviously, maybe they're offering some discounts, that sort of thing, for multiple sessions, and also for bringing along friends and family members. That's something that is now more aggressively pursued by a lot of these organizations and schools and whatnot, because obviously of competition. So let's talk a little bit about that as well. I mean, obviously we have to find what works with our budget, but what are some things that we need to consider in the price? What do we want to make sure that is included? Or if somebody has a more robust wallet, maybe something that offers a little bit of a la carte. What are your thoughts? I think you got your mute on.
Yes, I did. Sorry about that. The first thing you've got to do with as far as price and affordability and such is all the previous questions are the checklist, the things that you do your due diligence on, and you come up with a budget and try to fit all these things in related to what kind of experience you want to have, intimate one-to-one, small resort, large resort, proximity, do I want to travel across the country? All those things you've got to put into a factor and then start looking at your budget. And you said the operative word, what is included? You have got to be able to understand exactly what's included, and the company that you're dealing with or the individual you're dealing with should be totally transparent as to what's included. I am with every one of my clientele, and I give it to them verbally a couple of times. I give it to them in writing with email a couple of times, and it's not big and bold, but it's not the small print either. Check out the small print. A lot of times you think something's going to be included, such as gratuities. And this is something that a lot of golf school students ask about. Should I provide my instructor a gratuity? Check the small print. Maybe it's included within the rate. Maybe it'll say in the small print, hey, the instructor appreciates it, or they expect it, or what have you. Now all of a sudden it's not about a la carte. It's about being nickeled and dimed, is the phrase that a lot of people use. So I'm always counseling my clients, hey, I'm all inclusive. This is what it includes. You don't have to worry about anything extra, which puts a lot of people at ease. I think it puts most people at ease at any price point, whether expensive or inexpensive. When it comes to affordability and that entire checklist I previously spoke about, think about what that, I call it a value proposition. Think about that value that you're going to spend, not only in money but in time. And is that something that in your mind is equivalent to another experience you've had? Because at the end of the day, I love that Jamie used the term experience. That's exactly what you're doing. You're going for not only to learn and improve, but for the entire experience. Most people don't see it that way, particularly the people who are very mechanical in what they're trying to get done both on and off the golf course. Realize that you're trying to make a memory, and that does that value proposition equal some previous memories you've had? Is there some comparisons? Sometimes apple to oranges, but when you really think about previous golf vacations or just previous vacations to places you've never been, is this something that you're just as genuinely excited about at that same price point? And at the end of the day, I think it is about what kind of follow-up is provided within that rate. This is something that gets lost in the shuffle. Some people provide a lot of follow-up afterwards, whether you're bought into a virtual instruction subscription automatically within the rate and it's included, whether that's an a la carte, whether extra on-course is a la carte. All these different things you do have to explore, but one of the things that gets lost in the shuffle is that follow-up. Is there any, period? I know early in my career there was none. And I was sort of lost as a coach. Well, wait a minute, this person's calling me up, and the person I worked for was, come on, get them to come back. We need for them to pay for your time. And, I'm sort of in the middle with that now. You mentioned a la carte. Let me go through some a la carte things. Is there on-course coaching? Is there extra rounds of golf that can be added? Can I upgrade my room? Can I upgrade my meal package if that's something that's included? Do you include rental clubs and balls and tees that come with the rental clubs? A lot of people just don't want to lug their clubs around anymore. Do you have transportation? Is that something included, or is that a la carte? Transportation to and from an airport or a train station? Is there on-site transportation to go from one part of the resort to the other? I mentioned gratuities, not only gratuities for the instructor, but maybe for the instructor's helpers, for the other service people on property, such as the guys or gals cleaning your clubs and storing them. Ask all those questions, but start with what's your value proposition, and is this an experience that you're going to get a really good memory built from? My father's always told me, since I was a young kid, hey, all we're doing is making memories here, and your golf school experience should be one that you remember for a long, long time. And if you feel like you've overpaid or got gypped or you didn't do your due diligence, that's a memory you're going to remember on the golf course at the wrong time and hit an errant shot. You don't want that to happen.
Yeah, and you know, we want the students that are coming to the schools to have a good experience. And obviously some missteps or things can happen along the way, and not always through the fault of those running the school. Sometimes circumstances can just be, sort of a hit and miss. But I think it's important, you're right in what you said, again, some great points, is that you want to make sure that you've really put a lot of thought into this and not just sort of, hey, this sounds good, or hey, this is right within the price that I want. Make sure that you understand what is and isn't included, and are there upgrade options, and if so, what are they, how much are they, that sort of thing. So make sure you have all, I look at it this way, the more information that you have up front, then you're able to make an informed decision. And especially if you're bringing a family member, if you're bringing a spouse, let's say, or a partner, and you get there and you haven't done that due diligence, well, then it's become not just unpleasant for you, but also for that other person as well, because they're not happy, you're not happy, and it just becomes an overall miserable experience. So you want to make sure that you've looked into that. Another area, Jamie, that I want to come to you about, and this is one that you might think is just a no-brainer, but really, again, this is part of the investigation, if you will, and that is what practice time is offered. You want to be sure that you find out how much practice time is being offered at the golf school. Some may offer a number of hours per day. Others may let the students choose their own practice schedule depending on the length and time. But this is something for a number of reasons, not just a matter of just warming up and hitting some shots. You're coming to that school to learn things, and you want to be sure that you're being given ample time to work on some of those areas that maybe you're working at the school on your own, outside of the school itself. So what are your thoughts here? And again, and you can certainly throw in your own experiences as a coach and as a teacher professional, what you like to recommend for people that you're bringing into your own golf schools or groups.
Well, I certainly try to build in practice. I mean, the way I like to teach actually is to, we have a topic that we're really looking into, maybe a particular technique, something around, what's the difference in a pitch and a chip? I mean, just as an example, or sand shots, greenside bunkers, uphill, downhill. Maybe we're working on those kinds of lights. There's, so many different topic areas to work on. and then really look into what are some aspects of that technique, for example, and then to set up conditions to practice that, and to have the opportunity for students to really play those different kinds of shots, and it's supervised with the instructor. And that's something we haven't talked about yet, which is like ratio of student to instructor, but where you get personalized attention. And I also like to, I think a lot of schools use rotations, right? So maybe you work on this shot here and super work on that shot there, or, doing some different things. But that I think it's so important to show something, give people a chance to work on it, show something else, give people a chance to work on that, make some corrections, give some new ideas, maybe try it with a different club, try it with the club, where you've altered the loft a little bit. Ball position. I mean, there's so many variables to play with. And I think that's what's so important, is for people to have those kinds of experiences, and they need to actually play the shots to do that. So versus, practice on, the practice range, or it could be around the greens, whatever, on the greens. But that you have supervised practice where you're getting some information and then getting a chance to implement it, try it out. The learning process is such that you've got to repeat and repeat and repeat, right? You can't just tell somebody something, particularly in golf, and not let them actually swing the club and try to do it, and then over and over. It's the repetition that starts to get into, the whole body-mind system, so that you can actually, execute the shots, and we'll learn what it is and get the feel and get some success with it. So the practice part is so, so important, and I think supervised practice where people are getting feedback. And then to be able to take that to the course as well. I think that on-course practice, and again, supervised, and call it a playing lesson, but, where we can set up some different experiences on the golf course are absolutely essential. To me, that's where people are going to get the real bang for their buck out of their golf school experience.
And again, some great points. I think it all boils down to really balance. I think that you have to be in balance with the students at the school. I mean, you cannot be, and this comes into time. I want to add time in here, John. You've got 24 hours in a day. You might have several hours that they're working on a number of whatever, as Jamie pointed out, a number of different things. But and again, it's going to depend on what you're going to work on and how long you're going to be there. But how much time, I guess the question I want to ask is, how much time is sufficient in a day? So let's say they're going to go for a 2, maybe even a 3-day school. How much time each day is sufficient to have them working on various different things? There could be multiple things that they're working on. One, as to Jamie's point, to ensure that they're going to get a good feedback and good understanding of the concepts, as opposed to too much time where they're now becoming burnt out and it's sort of having the opposite effect. So, in your opinion, what has worked for you? How much time is sufficient to work on some of the things that we've talked about, and when does it become too much time that they're not really able to, they're no longer enjoying the experience? What are your thoughts here?
When a client calls me and asks about whether they should do a half day or a full day, one of the first questions I ask them is, what is their fitness level? When was the last time you played 4 rounds of golf in 2 days? If they're coming for a 2-day school, or 6 rounds of golf in 3 days. Your fitness level is going to really be the basis as to how much time will be appropriate for you in regards to getting the most efficient use of that time with an instructor or with a group and an instructor. Realize that one-to-one you can get more detailed, you can get more individual practice time, whereas with a group, a lot of that time you're going to be spending on your own hitting balls, most likely unsupervised, being provided some instruction and being asked to go about that instruction as best you can, as diligent and as disciplined as you can. But it's still time without an instructor watching you, and that's the biggest difference in why you pay more, you pay more for one-to-one than you would, say, for a group. When it comes to the amount of time, I also talk about the amount of balls. And the real simple math is if you're shooting 100, but in a utopic world you hit every green in regulation, that means you're putting 36 out of the 100 times. You're left with 64 full swings. And when you go through the big teaching basket of 300, you've just played 5 rounds of golf. So that's part of the time budgeting. As far as budgeting your time well from a pacing standpoint of view, the biggest thing that I see with people is they're there for all great reasons. And they're there truly in a very intense, short period of time, trying to put in all the work that, say, somebody would put in 3 to 6 months or even maybe a year with an instructor back home. The choice is yours, but realize that your time is better spent learning. And as Jamie said, getting some good practice in, but realizing, hey, you're going to have to go home and know how to practice it. So that's the other thing I would say about your time, whether you're doing drills or not, whether you're receiving 1-to-1 or 4-to-1 or 8-to-1 or whatever it is, you've got to make sure you're spending your time understanding what is it that I need to do for myself when I get home to carry on the experience, to carry on the learning so it's sustainable, not just a hit and miss, not just a one-time fix. The other thing in regards to time is recovery. How much time does your body need to recover? How much sleep do you need? How much fueling and hydration do you need? And that should be part of the mix above and beyond just your general fitness level. And that is going to differ. And I'll give you the two extremes. I've taught in Vegas before in 110-degree weather where it was gorgeous, sunny, but when your feet were on the grass, you were burning, you were soaking up so much sun, your hydration was just evaporating. Whereas I could be in the mountains of North Carolina or Georgia, and it's 60 degrees with very little humidity, and that's just a totally different environment that you're spending your time in. Are you conditioned for that? And are you going to be ready to handle that? Lastly, expectations. So many people come having an expectation of how they're going to utilize their time, how they want to spend their time. Make darn sure that you're communicating those expectations to your coach, to your instructor, to the school administrator, to the secretary of the school, whoever your point person is. At this particular juncture is where most people will make their decision based on budget and the other things we've talked about. Does this school meet my expectation as to how I'm going to utilize my time? A lot of people have different ideas and expectations, but let's get those expectations met ahead of time. So as you're spending time, you're immersed in what you're doing, and you feel like your time's being utilized in the most efficient way, in a way that you're getting not only the most out of it, but it's fun while you're doing it. And I think that's where most people forget about time. The time you spend there should be fun. You should, at the end of the day, go, wow, that day went quick. If it teeters on and goes on forever, then what your expectation of that time is versus how they delivered the time to you are probably two polar opposites, and your experience is probably not going to be as memorable as you want it to be.
Yeah, it has to be fun. I mean, obviously you're there to, work on certain aspects of your game, Jamie, but obviously it has to be, as John's pointing out, a good overall experience. And you were touching on a little bit about from the instructor standpoint and, what sort of takeaways that the student should have from that instructor. And there's obviously a lot of variety. It could be in a larger group, a 4-to-1 ratio. Obviously, options of a 2-to-1 or 1-to-1 ratio might be something more along the lines. But what's the takeaway based on your experience? You've done a lot of various different types of similar schools and programs through your years of teaching and coaching. But what's the takeaway you want your students to have when they're coming to work through you, and maybe you've got some others that are there with you? What's the takeaway that you want them to have? Obviously a good experience, but what's the takeaway? What do you want them to do when they're going home? What's the experience?
Well, first of all, I want them to be inspired. I want them to be all fired up and just have fallen in love with golf even more, and to be excited about the learning process, the practicing process, the improvement process. I want them to feel hopeful. I want them to feel excited. I want them to feel like they've really learned some new things. They've gotten some new perspectives, new information, and especially that they have kind of fallen in love with practicing. A lot of people don't, I kind of have a thing about practicing, like, I don't like it. It's like taking medicine. And if they can have the experience at a golf school that practicing, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
That practicing is really fun, and it can be really creative, and that it will make a really big difference in their improvement. I always kind of tease people and my golf students and my martial arts students. I don't know if you remember, there was a scene in the Matrix movie, a very famous Matrix movie many years ago now, but there was this guy who was like a fourth-degree black belt, and this person goes, "Download me, man, just download me." And it's like you can't really download being a fourth-degree black belt or download golf improvement. It comes just through practicing, but it's not like taking medicine. It's just a fascinating thing, and so I want people to have a takeaway that they're really interacting with themselves in a very rich way with their mind, body, emotion, systems, and being able to make swings and handle different situations and handle stress and pressure and handle bad shots, disappointment, handle even overexcitement or their expectations, that they have been having fun with other people, and that golf is both a very profound and rich personal, internal experience, as well as a wonderful social time, and a time also to be in nature and to just kind of, reconnect in so many different ways. So those are the things that I want people to take away, in addition to whatever their list was of what they specifically wanted to work on in their swing or in their what aspect of their game, and that they've got, a few key points, and not too many, but the really key, that they've been able to hone in on some key points or factors or a bit of information or a couple of drills that, oh yeah, that one's working for me, that's working for me, now I just need to go work it. So if they leave with clarity on what they're going to, some things to practice, also on how to practice, a new love of practicing, and just a real kind of joy and excitement reignited or ignited more than ever about the game of golf and their own possibilities to improve. Those are the things I want them to leave with.
Yeah, well said.
Take home with them.
Yeah, and it all down to the overall experience. People, it's interesting. I've observed people in all different walks of life, and the truth of the matter is, people are willing to, one of the most challenging things I think for most people is having to part with their hard-earned money. We work hard and sometimes have challenges to make that little bit extra. So when we have to part with some, we want to make sure that we're getting good value. And it's not all, Jamie, you pointed out very early on, it's not just all about, I don't want to just go there and have to grind for 2 or 3 days and not have a good overall experience and just feel like I'm work. I mean, obviously there's going to be some work involved, there's going to be some practice, and there's going to be some implementation. But I want to have a good overall experience. I want to feel that I'm getting good value. Whether I become a better golfer or not is not all indicative of the instruction, because again, it's, as you pointed out, John, it's the expectations that people go in with. What are your expectations, and what commitment they're willing to invest, not just the financial resources, but what commitment they're willing to input into that experience. So if they're going to go there and say, okay, I want to learn how to become a better at my short game, what do I got to do? And I show them all these things, and we go through the drills and so on and so forth, but they're not really putting the effort in, then they're not going to come away with a really great experience, because they're not going to see the improvement, or the improvement they're going in with, whatever they may be expecting, may not be realistic. So, it's something, and I'm not trying to scare anybody away from going to, there's a lot of great golf schools out there, but this goes into, okay, what am I looking for? What am I trying to achieve here? And what's my level of commitment? It's not just because I paid the money, well, that's my commitment. It's what commitment am I going to bring when I go there? And am I going to be open-minded? Am I going to be receptive? Maybe you're working with a coach or a teaching pro back home, and you're going somewhere different. You can't be going through the process saying, well, my coach back home said this, and my coach said, you need to have an understanding and have somewhat of an open mind. And then if you have questions, then you come back and you talk to your, coach or teaching pro there and say, hey, I went to the school for a few days and had a great experience, but there's some things I was confused about, and have that conversation when you get back. But overall, I think the points that we talked on tonight, you want to look at the reputation. You want to make sure that you reach out, look at online reviews if they're available, or speak to other golfers to see what they think of that particular school or what's being offered. And it certainly is in conclusion, a daunting task. But I think if you keep these factors that we mentioned in mind, I think you're going to find a school that is right for you. And that's really what we're talking about tonight. Guys, I think a great discussion. I think you guys hit a lot of the great points. And as always, I'm going to give both of you an opportunity to, number one, let the folks know how they can reach out to you, but also if there's anything special that you'd like to promote at this time, now's the time. We've got a few extra minutes, so go ahead. Jamie, I'm going to start with you this time and go in reverse order. So you go ahead, let the folks know how they can reach out to you, and if you've got anything special that you'd like to share with the audience.
Well, people can reach me through my website, which is the Kiai Way. Kiai Golf, KIAI golf.com, or they can go to the centeredway.com. It'll take you to the same place. So the centeredway.com or kiaigolf.com. They can also write me an email, jamie@kiaigolf.com, centeredway.com. So that's probably the best way. I often like to talk to people on the phone. I've been in and out of the country to some extent. But my phone number is 760-492-GOLF, GOLF. I have been diligently working on a book and about the Centered Way, and there's a wonderful, just inclusive chapter about using golf as a case study of really practicing the Centered Way and applying it, whether that's in golf, sports, leadership, et cetera. So I'm hoping my book will be, it's in the editing and formatting process, so that's something exciting to look forward to. And we'll probably be doing some more. I've been really into doing virtual golf schools and virtual lessons so that people can have access at any time. And, of course, the fitness dimension, both the physical fitness, golf fitness, and the body-mind fitness, I think is very, very important, and that's very easy to do and very powerful to do in virtual Zoom sessions, and that can add to anybody's golf game. So those have been some things that I've been really excited about and having a lot of success with people. The pandemic kind of opened that up, and I'm just keeping going with it because it's been so successful.
Yeah, it's amazing what one of the great benefits of technology is allows you to reach out to a much broader and wider golfing community and not always having to see them face to face, which is certainly nice in itself, but it allows you to reach more people. So definitely virtual golf, and it can be, it can, go ahead.
Yeah, if I could just throw in 1 minute, because we're right at the anniversary of Shirley Spork's passing right now, and also Marilyn Smith. They both passed away this week. 1 year ago and 3 or 4 years ago, they were two of the founders of the LPGA, and they also were the founders, the ones who made possible the teaching division in 1959. The LPGA itself, the tour started in 1950. But they really felt that and gave the example that you weren't necessarily the greatest player, so but becoming a terrific teacher is really important. And Shirley, as you know, was a teacher till the day she died, and they were phenomenal. So, that kind of mentorship, that kind of passion on, into your 90s, and also to know that, you're looking not for popularity or sometimes the, top 100 teachers or whatever. People don't realize how much that's kind of a popularity political thing. It doesn't necessarily mean that someone's the best teacher. Yeah.
Yeah,
so
definitely
just a shout
two greats.
To Shirley and to Marilyn. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely two greats, original founders of the LPGA, which I had the honor of speaking with both of them over my time doing the program. So very fortunate to have that. John, go ahead and let the folks know how they can reach out to you. And if you have anything special that you want to plug, go ahead.
Sure. First, Jamie, always a pleasure to be on the show with you. Always great points. We're sort of in not necessarily two different polar opposites, but we do a lot of similar things. We just go about it a little bit differently. And I'm always learning a little something from you and very much appreciate your wisdom that you share with everybody. Ted, again, thanks for the opportunity. Always a pleasure. Look forward to the second Thursday of every month to share the passion that I have for what I do. John Hughes Golf. It's real simple. Put an ampersand or a hashtag in front of it. Put a .com at the end of it, and you're going to find me somewhere on the World Wide Web, whether it's my website or social media. Feel free to reach out at any point. I think something that Jamie said that I want to reiterate is every one of my potential clients do get to talk to me personally. There's not somebody on the other line from an answering service or somebody who's an employee that answers my phone. I do that, and that's the personal connection I try to have people understand from the very get-go. And I applaud Jamie for doing the same. As far as promoting anything, there are some very limited spots left for a very special 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 golf school experience at Macklemore between May 13th and June 20th. And there's also some openings in a group golf school. We're going to be doing 2-day group golf schools. I'll have some assistants there to help me. And it's a little bit more on the affordable side, but Macklemore is just a spectacular facility, really great practice facility, top 10 finishing hole in all the world, a top 100 golf course with a fantastic range and short game area called the Carn. Do urge you to get, if you're interested, to get in touch with me personally, either at John Hughes Golf or give me a call. There are such limited dates available. We want to make sure that we can get you in there. It's going to be a great experience, and I hope you can join me there.
Well done. And guys, as always, I want to thank both of you for always bringing your best to the show. It's always I really do, and I've said this a number of times, but I sincerely mean this. I really enjoy, obviously I enjoy doing the show in general, but I really enjoy the Coach's Corner segment. I get a chance to speak with great professionals like yourself, and I always learn some things as well, and hopefully occasionally I drop out a few pearls of wisdom of my own, but again, it's not about me. It's about you guys. So always enjoy it. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you both next time on the Coach's Corner panel here on Golf Talk Live. Thanks, guys. Have a great one.
Thanks you both.
Ted.
Okay.
You
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, that was John Hughes and Jamie Leno Zimron joining me on the Coach's Corner panel segment of Golf Talk Live. And when we come back, I'm going to be joined by both of my special guests this evening, Mark Lukenbill, the founder and CEO of MPRUV Golf, and Anh-Dao, who is their head of coaching and community. I'll tell you a little bit about both when we come back after this quick message from Golf Tips Magazine.
The following ad is sponsored by Golf Tips Magazine.
Are you tired of being short off the tee? And what about those 3 putts? Forget about it. It's time you got serious about your game. Golf Tips, the most in-depth magazine in the industry. For over 30 years, Golf Tips has delivered expert content such as the latest golf instruction from America's top pros, simple-to-follow practice and game improvement drills, fitness and mental game tips, equipment, training aids, accessory, and apparel reviews, golf destinations and travel tips for every budget, and so much more. Don't miss a single issue. Go to golftipsmag.com and subscribe today.
Hi, good evening. Welcome to Golf Talk Live. Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, hi.
Yeah.
Mark.
Okay, hi. My apologies. I think my mic may have gone for a second, so I apologize if you didn't hear me. So I'm gonna. I think if I'm not mistaken, I think I may have actually had it muted by mistake from when I was going through the commercial. So I'm just going to very quickly for the audience just do a very quick run through again, just so that the people have a better understanding of who both of you are. So as I mentioned, my special guests tonight are Mark Lukenbill, founder and CEO of MPRUV Sports, and Anh-Dao, who is the head of coaching and community. Both started the great game very young, and as you mentioned, as I mentioned earlier, that Anh-Dao was the Co-Evans Scholar of the Year in 2022, and she was on Golf Talk Live late in the season last year. So very excited to have her back. So again, my apologies for the mic, but welcome to Golf Talk Live, both of you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Ted. Can you guys hear us all right?
Ken, and again, my apologies. So Ann, welcome back. Glad to have you back on the show. And Mark, thank you for coming on as well. Appreciate haven't had a chance to speak with you before, but I'm looking forward to tonight's discussion. So I'm going to do this just for a moment for both of you, and then we'll get into some of the specifics that we're going to talk about tonight. Mark, just give me an idea. Obviously, I mentioned earlier that you played this game, started playing this game at a very young age, about 7 years old. What was your earliest memories of the game? How did you get started? Was a family member get you involved, or somebody outside of your immediate family? How did you get started playing this game and getting to where you are now?
Yeah, it's an interesting story. My uncles were all truck drivers, and it's weird how I found my way into the transportation and logistics industry aside from what I'm doing now. But they drove for E-Z-Go, and they delivered golf carts to all the major golf courses up and down the coasts, and it was amazing summers for us. We would just ride with them, me and my brother, and visit all these beautiful golf courses. And then I grew up in a small town in Missouri, Harrisonville, Missouri. And I'm probably assuming, like the majority of your listeners, we had a small municipal course, 9-hole with sand greens. It was the most bizarre thing in the world now that I've played for as long as I have, been a part of many leagues, playing in high school and competitive tournaments. To think back about my initial start into the game and hitting wedges into a big circle sand dome, having to place the ball, roll the roller out, take the string, line it up, move it over to the rolled out spot, and putt on sand surfaces. But as I've gotten older and got deeper into the game, I realized that's pretty common in a lot of these small communities. They're just trying to get the game out there, and obviously it's a lot cheaper to maintain and build. So that's how I got my start into it. My uncles got me involved. 7 years old, first time I went out and played with them, and like most people, fell in love with it.
Yeah, and then you began, involved obviously in leagues and obviously playing competitively in high school and obviously some other tournaments as well. And now you are a member at a club in Kansas, so you get to play a little bit more in a little bit different way than you did in your earlier time. And I'm obviously a little more familiar with your story because, as I mentioned, you've been on the show last year as Evans Scholar of the Year. And obviously, but just let the folks know, you started, as I mentioned as well, a very young age, about 10 years old. But what was it about golf that appealed to you, that attracted you to the game? How did you get started? And then tell us just a little bit about how you got involved with the Evans Scholar program.
Yeah, so I think when I was very young, I wasn't very athletic, and like as much as I was involved in soccer and basketball, those kind of sports were just not meant for me. And so I was introduced to golf through a Girl Scouts program where they partnered with the LPGA. And then after my event and activities through Girl Scouts and LPGA, I joined a lot of junior PGA leagues And then I joined First Tee and Youth on Course. And then my involvement started to grow. And in the beginning, I really struggled as a golfer. But the whole point of learning golf as a child is you're not only developing life skills, but you are developing leadership skills, because it takes a whole lot of emotional intelligence to balance your mentality if you hit a bad shot. And then I think when I was in high school, I really enjoyed golfing, and so I was trying to look for a job, but then there just wasn't any jobs for me nearby my area, and I happened to found a caddy program at Indian Hills Country Club, and so ever since, I've been actively caddying. And then during the Caddy Academy, they presented the Evans Scholarship, and they said to qualify for the scholarship, you have to caddy for at least 2+ years and build a caddy record. And thankfully, that's how I was able to get the Evans Scholarship. And ever since, it's been a whole bunch of miracles being a part of the Evans Scholarship Foundation.
Yeah, and as I said, I'll tell at the end of the program how the listeners can go back and hear that particular recording of that show when you were on last year and was the Evans Scholar of the Year, and they can hear that interview in entirety, and there's a lot of great information there. So now we're going to move on to MPRUV Golf and MPRUV Sport. So, Mark, you obviously at some point had the idea to start this. How did you come up with the idea? What was it? What sort of sparked in your mind? Okay, here's something I wanted to tell us a little bit first up about the business itself. What is it? How does it sort of work? And what sparked the interest in developing this? And as you continue to help grow the game, what was sort of the motivating factor to develop MPRUV Golf?
Sure, absolutely. So, give a high level on what we're doing. The company itself is MPRUV Sports, where we're building, a series of peer-to-peer, on-demand sports education marketplaces. The first lead into the market is with MPRUV Golf, where it's essentially it's a matchmaking service where we're trying to pair students, prospective students, youth, people interested in getting involved in the game or accelerating, their path in the game with coaches. There's a general problem in the market where majority of our course pros are overbooked. Their time is, very valuable but very scarce. And there's a lot of people that, are seeking instruction or want to get involved in the game but don't have an outlet to it. So the idea is to basically connect all of the current pros, current instructors, but then also build a platform for individuals that, played in high school, played in college. One of the individuals that's helping us on the coaching side, he coaches for a local community high school here. During the spring, he's a golf team that he coaches, but then during the summer when school's out, this is an outlet for him to continue that education path, build a profile as a coach, offer his services, make additional income, and then really try to continue that business outside of the school year. So the idea is really it's a connection place, right? We allow anybody to participate as a coach, but then for players' perspective to find the right fit for them. Golf's really challenging. It is, and it's take instruction. We're very prideful individuals, and I want to allow people to find the right fit for them, whether it's demographically, ethically, whatever they are looking for in the game. I hope they find it in MPRUV. And so I can tell you a little bit about the concept of the idea, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we're going to get into that next, but I just want to just sort of piggyback onto what you just said. You're exactly right. One of the things that happened, which fortunate but unfortunate in some ways in golf is, we've just sort of come on to the other side of this pandemic. And, obviously it was very unfortunate for a number of reasons that we had to go through this, but golf really benefited as a result because there were a lot of things that we couldn't do. And golf, fortunately for the industry, was something that we were able to do more freely than other activities. So there's really been an uptick, as you pointed out, in the game and causing a lot of coaches not to, be available. So really what you're providing is, in a sense, a service of connecting people together and saying, hey, we've got, this group over here who is able to provide some top-notch quality instruction, and we've got a willing participating audience, if you will, over here that needs access to that, but is having difficulty for whatever reason. So, hence MPRUV Golf is developed. So tell us about how it actually works so that people understand. It's about making that connection between really the two parties. How does it happen? What's involved, and what's the process? Give us a better understanding of that.
Absolutely. So the application is completely free for both parties. The idea is that a player can build a profile, they can set goals, they can set areas of focus, and then from their homepage simply go out and say, hey, I'm open Friday at 2:00. Does anybody want to either meet me at, Falcon, Dubs, X Golf, XYZ course, and help me work on some things? And they'll send a request out, and then anybody who's signed up as a coach within that certain mile radius will get a request, and they're allowed to, basically put a bid back in and say, yeah, I can do it. I'm available. I can do it for $50, $60, $100, whatever the case may be. And the idea of the marketplace is that you have instruction levels from every facet. You've got individuals that want nothing more than to do gig work, right? They're, maybe a single-digit handicap. They know the basics of the game. They can teach. They can, offer their services, offer their insights to the game, and nothing better to do on a Friday night, all the way up to course professionals or people that do this for a living. And it's up to the consumer to decide what's the best fit for them. Like, I think of it from first-time golfer's perspective. There's a lot of intimidation that goes into going to a country club and asking a pro for a lesson. We're all golfers here. We know how personal the swing is. But to be able to have somebody else that fits your social, basically the thing that you feel comfortable with, being able to choose, seeing a profile that has social content, videos of previous lessons, accolades, things that they've accomplished, and then obviously seeing the rate difference allows you to choose the coach that fits for you. But then the other side of it, the flip side, is the coaching, right? So we want our course pros to participate. We want our current instructors to participate. But again, their time is so valuable and so booked to this point that we've actually built a feature inside the app that allows them to push last-minute cancellations. So we all know somebody builds a book of business coaching, life happens, people have kids, families, reality, jobs. All of a sudden that 2 p.m. lesson that you had booked for 3 weeks cancels at 1:30, right? From a coach's perspective, now we give them the option to push that promotion straight to the marketplace of students by saying, hey, I have this time open now. My normal rate's X. This is what I'll do it for now. And that gets automatically exposed to this marketplace of students right on their homepage. And then with that, they can manage a dynamic calendar. They can push open times, whatever times they have throughout the day. It's very, very simple. Just touch a couple times. Like, I've got a 30-minute block here, an hour block here. And then from the student side, again, they can request instantly or through the Explore feature, go in with unique, really smart search criteria, find a coach that they're either within an area or by a venue or by areas of focus, look at their profiles, view their schedule, and then book directly with them right there.
And now, is this all, obviously they're able to, each side, and I'm going to use it that way. So from a coaching standpoint and from a student standpoint, there's profiles that the student can view, and obviously the coach can view as well. And as you said, there's an opportunity for coaches that have openings, either regular openings or last-minute openings, are able, as you said, to push that through. Can they also, on a regular basis, let's say if they decide, I really like this format, I like this, I'm going to leave every Friday afternoon, 2 hours open, and I'm going to maybe put, an offer of either an hour lesson or half hour, 4 half-hour lessons, however they want to bill it. And here's the rate that I'm going to do. Can they do that? Can they be that flexible as well from a coach's standpoint and push that through?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. We spend a lot of time building the MVP. We focus the majority of the time in the dynamic calendar and the scheduling feature for the coaches. We met with a lot of local pros here in Kansas City and a couple of other small target areas, asked them what's their challenge right now. And they said that, right? It's managing the clientele base, because you think about the course pro, for instance, there's a lot that they have to do aside from just giving lessons at the course. And days are very variable, right? So the fact that they can either, exactly like you said, hey, I know every Friday from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. I have that blocked off for lessons. I can set that reoccurring on my calendar. Students can see that when they view my profile, or I can manage it dynamically to say, this day's slowing down, inventory's not here, shipment got pushed, I've got 3 hours open now. let me go ahead and add this as, open available time for the students to come onto my profile and book.
Yeah, and that's a great, feature to have because, again, it gives from a coaching standpoint, it gives them the opportunity to say, hey, here's what I have available. Here's my schedule. And then it allows from the student's perspective to say, okay, here's what I'm looking for. And through, the wonderful world of technology, they're able to come together, which is not something that's always been as easy. I mean, not everybody can, like you said, wants to necessarily go and visit and ask the pro at the local country club because it can be very intimidating. So it gives them an option to sort of meet on their own terms and then develop a relationship moving forward. So I think that's a great opportunity. And I want to bring you into this because I've got a sort of a similar question for you about MPRUV Golf. How do you see it sort of benefiting the youth, if you will? I mean, this is an ever-growing game. It's not just, the old guys like me out there that have been playing for a number of years. There's a lot of youth coming to the market like yourself and others. So how do you see this really benefiting? Because youth are they're not used to, many of the youth today have not grown up in that country club experience. Some of them may never golf. So that's, again, there's an intimidation factor. So how do you see MPRUV Golf sort of benefiting the younger market out there?
I think for the younger market, it will help parents and youth together to find more local coaches, and especially it will increase accessibility to golf tremendously, mostly because, like, from my own personal experience, since I was in the first tee network and I had access to the first tee coaches, I had to drive about 40-plus minutes from Kansas City to Missouri just to get lessons for first tee programs, and I could find some that were closer to me, but those coaches were always booked because they had lessons through the pro shop, and they had older clients that would get off of work and have lessons, and then it was just quite difficult because my parents are also working individuals, and at the time I couldn't drive myself, and so it would have to be late evenings. And I think with this opportunity, it definitely gives a lot of options for all age groups, any type of individuals, boys, girls who wants to learn. And then I think the app also helps tailor lessons to each individual because not everyone has the same, knowledge regarding golf. And with the app, you can build your profile and where so through the first tee, if I'm the Eagle program or an Ace level program, I'm trying to get my badge or a little pin for that, and the coaches through MPRUV Golf can help, develop the skills that the first tee program has, or et cetera. So I think this helps bridge the gap between a whole lot of areas that are missing.
Yeah, well said. And
if I could
sorry, go ahead, Mark.
Just real
yep,
fast.
Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. So we built a parent portal inside the app because the idea from a youth perspective is we want to promote competition, right? We want people to experience all the benefits that the game of golf has to offer. And in working with a lot of local high schools, we found that, it's generalized. High school instruction, for the majority part in a lot of smaller societies, is very generalized. You have one person that coaches 15, 20, 30 students at a time. It becomes very difficult. But if you have, the drive, the passion, the talent to try to make a career out of it, our goal is to create a matchmaking service to help you find somebody that can work with you one-on-one, right? Setting up regular sessions, helping you accelerate your game. Maybe you want to go from JV to varsity or, lower varsity to state, right? Offering that supplemental instruction outside of what the school provides.
Yeah, and what's great, I want to point out in case the listeners haven't picked up on this yet, is that this is really through an app. So you're utilizing technology in order to do this. It's not just a matter of, going on a website or what have you. There's actually an app that people can, get for their device and be able to utilize this particular service. What I want to ask you, though, is you mentioned earlier, Mark, about video content and things like that. So in addition to connecting the two groups, the coaching or professionals, and then obviously the specials have an opportunity, and let me see if I can get this right. When you go to whether it be a confectionery store or something, you'd like to get a little taste of what you're going to experience. Do the coaches have the ability to put up some, again, very short, but instructional tips or things like that, just to give an example of what they're providing so that the students can kind of sample a little bit and say, hey, I really like what this person's approach, or, maybe I like that person's approach. Is there the availability to do that so that the student gets a better understanding of what's coming that way as opposed to just a bio? Give me your thoughts here.
Absolutely, Ted. I mean, you hit the nail on the head right there. So the social feed inside the platform is designed specifically for that, right? We want to give the coaches every tool possible to promote themselves and build their business, right? It's building a brand, it's marketing themselves, and creating followers, right? We modeled it very similar to your traditional social sites that are out there where players can follow coaches, see any content that they post. But the ideation is that, coaches, you have free reign if you want to post previous lessons, swing tips for the day. The more content you post, the more exposure to a potential audience that you get. If you have, tons of current followers liking and subscribing to your profile, following your profile, that's going to then, show to other prospective students and have them come over and view your information, which, you have that, like, I don't want to call it like a fear factor, but a similar fear factor, right? Everybody has a little bit of reservations in going to an in-person lesson, but if you're seeing content, if it's, how you approach the game, if it's, something that you're vibing with, then that might make them make that jump from just social interaction to actual lesson booking.
Yeah, and I think it's good for people, and especially we didn't obviously have a lot of this technology when I was growing up. I wish in some ways we did, but it's making the game in a lot of ways much more interesting because you have so many options available that you didn't have before, and it's also becoming much more affordable than what it once was. And Ann, I think you can relate to this. I mean, golf has traditionally been a very expensive game, and I'm not trying to say that it's all of a sudden bargain basement either, but it's becoming more accessible, more affordable. So and again, I'm going to approach this from the use perspective. You really see this as an opportunity from a coaching standpoint, really differentiating from some of the current youth coaching platforms that we see. And you mentioned First Tee and that, but even the LPGA. And again, I'm not knocking any of the organizations, but you see this as really an opportunity to fill a void that maybe has not been there by some of the other organizations. Is that accurate? And if so, maybe you can talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, more or less. I mean, I think if MPRUV Golf and Youth on Course, LPGA, PGA, and I guess the First Tee as well, if all of them can share similar networks, I think that it would also be easier to find any like PGA certified, LPGA certified, First Tee certified coaches, and this will also help youths who are very interested in wanting like a First Tee coach as compared to like a coach who coaches more like adults. But like all of this just shows that the market for coaches can be very wide and immense, and that I guess the diversity of it is where we also don't know like who's available besides like word of mouth of individuals. So I think it's almost like a LinkedIn for coaches, and I think this is like very revolutionary for a whole lot of individuals.
Yeah, we actually built the profile. Sorry, real quick. So we actually built the profiles to allow coaches to add those accolades. So if they're a First Tee member, Youth on Course member, PGA member, they can add that right on their profile. So smart search features in the app allow students to find those connections. Sorry, Ted.
Yeah, and that's great. I mean, because, that's what people see. And this is what I was talking about earlier when I mentioned, sort of during and post-pandemic, a lot of new people came to the game that had never been around before. They didn't, have the fortunate ability, as you both did, that, got into this game at a very young age. And they're coming out for the first time. And some of them may be in their 20s, some of them may be even a little bit older, never picked up a golf club. So for them, they're wanting to have, the ability to do that, but they're not sure where to start. So you're really providing the platform that gives them the information they need to make an informed decision. Say, okay, here, I'm really interested in the sport. I don't know where to start. Here's a good place for me to start is MPRUV Golf. So on that, what advice would you give both coaches, Mark, and players that may be potentially interested in your app?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we're trying to do is mitigate risk, right? I think right now with traditional means of going out and finding instruction, there's several risk factors that are preventing people from actually taking the leap forward. One of them is cost, comfort, style fit, personality fit, right? We can never make the decision for them. We want to get as many people involved in this game as we possibly can. If I can, it's so hard to put into words the experience that I have every time I step foot on a tee box, right? But if I can share just a little bit of that with somebody, that's what my goal is. So instead of, obviously pushing the button for them, if I can reduce the amount of risk that they have in taking that first step, that's obviously what I'm trying to do. So obviously giving them features and functionality to find a fit that works for them, to find a price point that works for them, to find a schedule or a venue or, et cetera, that works for them. It obviously mitigates a lot of that risk and allows them to take that leap a lot easier.
Yeah, again, well said. And then I think from, again, a more youthful perspective, with the availability of technology, people want to be able to not just access the information, but they want to be able to do it easily. They don't want to have to, to be a cumbersome event. So if they're looking to get more information, they want to be able to go somewhere and do the things that they need to do to get the answers to the questions they may have and then take action when appropriate. So this is something that obviously has appealed to you about MPRUV Golf. And is that correct that really that's what the youth is looking for? Is they're looking for not just a different experience, but the ease of access not only to the golf game itself, but to top-rated instruction or better instruction, but also to learn the game at a level and accessibility that hasn't been there for a long time. Is that accurate as well? And if you want to add any thoughts.
Yeah, I think it's accurate because for the most part, if I were to have a coach, sometimes it might work, sometimes it might not. And especially in most areas, your options might be limited to whoever can coach, but having the whole platform, the network of more coaches available within the area, you get options. And it's almost I won't say speed dating, but it's almost you got to try out lessons with one coach, and if it doesn't work out, then you can try another one, and you can, based on their profile and see, how have they worked in the past with students, and what are their thoughts, and then it's you can recommend people, or you can just see ratings, and I think for, youths, this will help us a whole lot, because especially for older kids, their school schedule can be tight, and so sometimes they might want last-minute lessons. So this app definitely offers that whole flexibility with them, because not all the time you can go to a scheduled lesson because you might have an important exam, or for college students who want to transition from the student to a coach, they can have that option, and where you can make cash on the side, and, use your expertise or knowledge that you've learned in golf and apply it, and share that same knowledge and experience to other youth as well.
Yeah, again, well said. And it's all, it's obviously about the accessibility, and it's you want to make it as simple and easy as possible. Mark, I want to ask you from a coach's perspective, for the coaches that are going to get involved. I think, I've been teaching this game now. This is my 31 years. I can't believe it. Getting up there. But one of the things that I've always tried to do is to keep things as simple as possible. So when somebody is coming to you and they're saying, okay, I want to be a part of this. This sounds great. I really like what you're doing here. I've got all this experience. Do you try to encourage them to keep it as simple as possible? Certainly, they want to talk about what they can do and things like that, but do you try to avoid a situation where they're sort of over analyzing the process. In other words, providing so much information, the person on the other side scrolling through, 3,000 pages. I know this is exaggeration, but are you trying to encourage the coaches to say, hey, let's keep it as simple as possible? People are going to get a flavor of what you can do and what your credibility is, but let's keep it as simple as possible so that people are not sort of getting caught in the weeds. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. So it's interesting that you say that. Like I've had a lot of conversations about what we do, and this is a feature that we built, probably in the really early stages of development for MPRUV Golf. That actually, it's I'm kind of just flabbergasted right now because nobody's asked about this, but it was something that we thought about in the very beginning. So when a lesson is booked in the platform, we have a chat auto default. So as soon as a lesson is booked with a coach, it takes you to a chat screen. And the first auto-populated question is, what do you want to get out of this lesson? So before the coach even has to type it, we set that expectation with the student to say, tell me what you want to experience, right? Because the idea of it is that if a coach and a student have clear expectations of what's going to happen, you're not going to show up to a lesson and have a coach just data dump on you, which, to your point, we have a lot, and trust me, there's a ton of great knowledge out there. But people who've been doing it as long as you have and as long as a lot of these coaches have, it gets robotic and it gets repetitive, and they show up to a lesson and they just start going into it, right? Versus that
it's a diatribe.
Absolutely, right? There needs to be a level of qualification that happens, right? What do you want out of the lesson? So that's what we also try to implement with the areas of focus. So when a new student is requesting a lesson, they can actually put key features in that they want to focus on. Like, hey, I want this lesson to solely focus on mid-irons and putting, right? And they put those two characteristics in, and that goes out in the request. Or driving, ball speed, or club fitting, or fitness, right? Like, hey, I want somebody to help me with stretches, things that I can do pre-routine to get my body in shape because I'm getting older. So we try to put that level of communication first and foremost in the lesson request, but then we add another layer in with the chat auto default that says, hey, let's make sure that our expectations are set clearly on both sides before we get there.
Yeah, and that's a really great couple of points as well is, and you're exactly right. I'll be the first to admit it. I've caught myself over the years, you sort of have an understanding of what, for the most part, on average, what students are looking for. We were given 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, and that's because we need to listen more than we speak. And unfortunately, there are some in the industry that want to tell you, and especially where technology, and I'm not talking about your app, but I'm talking about technology when it comes to teaching. And I get, I went to the PGA show this year and you see all kinds of wonderful technology, but the downside to that is there's so much involved teaching these coaches how to use and understand it that for some reason they feel impelled to, teach their student all about this technology, and it's really not necessary. So, that's something that, we have to learn to guard against as coaches that say, that technology is for us to better help and serve you, the student, not there to give you a lesson about how the technology works. The student doesn't really care unless they're, a science major or something like that. And then that's a conversation you could have after the lesson, but not during the lesson. So I think that's important as well. And then, Anna, I want to come back to you as well. From a student's perspective, what are you looking for? If you were a student and you were on this platform, obviously you're looking to connect with somebody in that. But I've known, working with a lot of younger students and things over the years, I deal mainly corporate, but I also do some of the other as well from time to time. And one thing I've learned lately is that the generations coming up are looking more for what I would classify as a golf plus experience. And what I mean by that is they weren't raised in the country club atmosphere, most of them, and they're not looking to be the next, Masters winner or, LPGA major winner. They just want to go out and have fun. And I think that's something that you want as well when you're playing, is you certainly want to play your best and be competitive and whatnot, but you're out there to have a good time. And I think that's what this younger, more youthful generation is looking for, is sort of that golf plus experience. Is that accurate, do you think? And maybe you can shed some light on that.
Yeah, so I think from a student perspective, I've grown up just learning the basics and honing my craft based on those basics. But I think as golf lessons start to evolve, there's a whole lot more programs like Snag Golf that really spices up the game a little bit, and you can incorporate more activities like aiming your ball at a target in either midair or on the ground, target practice, etc. And so especially from a student perspective, I think having a coach who can be flexible and create a curriculum for their students that's tailored to them. Like if I want to learn how to drive, like I just don't want to be hitting balls at the driving range because, my body will tire out. And I know for like younger students or like from age groups 3 to 10, I would think they would want more funner games. And with Snag Golf, the equipment itself is very adjusted to the different heights of younger individuals. And then like instead of an actual golf ball, they have more of a, I don't know what you call it, like a styrofoam ball, or not styrofoam, but it's like those balls that stick to the targets. And I know there's also a weight where you can add weights to the club, or it could just be a stick. All those type of materials where it's like injury, there's no injuries involved, like all of that, having those resources available into the curriculum itself, that's something that I would look for if I were in the shoes of a 12-year-old or something like that. And it can't always just be like, what's in your bag, all 14 clubs, but, it'd also be nice to just have a round of 18 holes or 9 holes, either at a par 3 course. But something else is I would like to know some tips and tricks, like stance, or I guess hand positioning on the club, because I think I've always had the same Schneidler hand grip, but, some people's grips are different for different students. So if I had known different ways to hold a club, different ways to stand and hit a ball or approach a ball, then I think that would have been helpful, because these type of exercises have helped students, especially in the first tee, tremendously. And so I think just more diversity and knowing the students you'll have and the coach perspective as well.
Yeah, and that's, again, that makes perfect sense. And that's a great point because, again, we're all individuals. We all play the game differently. It might be the same game, but we play it differently. And there are a lot of different grips that can be used and variations of the grip, again, depending on and meeting that individual's needs. So, and there's a lot of different options to learn the game as well. So it's great to be able to have that. And Mark, I want to give you an opportunity to just spend a few minutes to talk about overall the MPRUV sports model, because it's not just about MPRUV golf. We're talking about golf right now, but you are also branding it as MPRUV Sports. What are your plans with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So before we go into that, I just want to make one comment on the last of it. So we actually built this app specific for the scenario that you just mentioned, right? Like, how can we allow individuals to have more fun? Say you have a guy's golf trip coming up on the weekend, or a tournament like Kansas and Missouri, and I'm sure a lot of other states are doing something very similar with these amateur tours and promoting a lot of competitive golf events, which is it's amazing, right? But let's just say you have a tournament coming up on the weekend, and then all of a sudden you're out playing on a Wednesday, and you're hooking your driver, and you have no idea what's going on. To be able to have that instant connection to say, somebody meet me out on the range and tell me what I'm doing wrong before I go into this tournament Saturday, right? That's going to help them have a better experience when they go into that. So the idea is exactly that, right? How do we create the optimal experience inside the game? And that translates to every other sport. So we built the tech. It took us, so we've been building this for about 2 years now. We had a version of the product built in 2021 that we thought about taking to market. 2021, we were still very much, living in this weird COVID world. And There were some, concerns and thoughts about, I guess just the want of people to have in-person instructions, which, I think that birthed a lot of these online coaching programs that exist right now, Skillists, Me and My Golf, a couple others that came out of it. But golf, it's so nuanced. Like nothing can take the place of an in-person lesson. You take a video from the back, who's to tell how far away your feet are, right? Or where your hand position lies in between your knees. Like you can't see that from a video, And that little thing can affect the swing so much. Anyways, so we had an MVP version of that product built in 21. But we said, hey, let's take a step back, right? We see a larger vision for what we're doing outside of golf, even though a majority of our founders are scratch golfers and, very and passionate and involved in the game itself. But we all, I have 3 children. I coach my sons everything. So basketball, baseball, soccer, football, everything. And the idea is how can we take this same level of person-to-person, peer-to-peer instruction, available on-demand instruction to every other sport. So we actually decided, let's rebuild the tech. Let's rebuild the tech and refactor it to where once we get one app to the market, prove the concept, which we're doing now with golf, we can relabel it, change the venue strategy a little bit, and have tennis ready later this year. And then from there, we'll have baseball, softball ready right after that, volleyball, football, every other sport where there's a need for people that want to promote either their children's or maybe they're an adult competitive league, a way to get better, have the availability to have an outlet to get better. And we find this, especially when we look at tennis, right? It's great. If we had an app that could connect players to coaches to go meet at a public facility, Wyandotte County Park, all these other, facilities that have tennis courts, and have somebody out there and just hit a bunch of balls for an hour and a half, work on, forehand, backhand, baseball, go meet at a facility, hit some, or go throw a couple of balls to them, play some fielding, hit some grounders to them, allow that parent to have access to those coaches who, if you have a child that shows the competitive advantage to maybe make a career out of it, you start now, you're obviously going to propel yourself above your peer group. And that's what we want to give people, the ability to do that.
Yeah, and I think that's fantastic. Now, is there also, Mark, just so I understand this, and I want to make sure so the audience understands this, obviously this is all done through an app. You're connecting coaches and students together in that, and, obviously creating the opportunity to meet at facilities. But is there also as Ann pointed out earlier, schedules, especially for students that have very, robust education schedules that maybe are not always able to dip out to a range or a golf course, is there also a virtual ability there as well, not just to communicate, but if they want to get that update or instruction, can they also through the app do that, or do they need to go outside once the connection's made if they want to do a virtual lesson? Is that able to do that in real time, or is that something that's not being offered through? Okay, so go ahead. Touch on that just briefly if you wouldn't mind.
Sure, absolutely. As much as we all want to put COVID behind us, unfortunately, it's something that has affected the way that we interact with individuals moving forward. So we have built a virtual feature inside the app. And I don't want to blame it on COVID specifically with the pandemic itself, but I think it changed the behavior of the individual, right? Nothing to do with me fearing going out to get a disease, but I prefer to do things virtually now, right? I have 3 kids, and life happens, but now if I can meet somebody over Zoom, that allows me to accomplish more things throughout my day, which, efficiency is obviously the key. So absolutely, yes. So just the behavioral change of the way that we like to buy. So we built a virtual feature absolutely inside the app where students can send videos. They can request just phone consultations. They can actually the thought is exactly what you said. It's interviews, right? So for instance, if you just see a coach's profile and you want to request a free phone consultation, you can do that through the app as well. Like, hey, I just want to talk to you before we meet, right? I want to understand a little bit more. Yeah, your profile says you did this, this, and this. That's great. But maybe I just want to make a human connection before I go out and meet you somewhere. Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. You want to make sure that, and it really goes back to compatibility as well. I mean, they might have great credentials, but they may not be the right person for you. Doesn't mean they're a bad coach, and it works the other way too. Is maybe the students' expectations, and again, I'm not trying to throw anything on there, but maybe they're not necessarily being realistic. And as a coach, I don't want to put myself in a position where if this person's expectations don't meet what it is that I'm providing, I don't want to make that connection and have them be disappointed or not feeling like I'm able to provide what they need to get the results that they want. So I think that's great to have that ability to have that interconnection before you ever step out in the lesson tee. And I think it's right. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, you heard me say it earlier. It's mitigating the risk, right? How can we lower the risk to get somebody to make that jump into, bettering themselves?
I had a guest on several years ago. Unfortunately, the name slips my mind, but he was talking about. He was a young individual, and he said one of the issues that he had was time. I don't have 4 hours to go out and play 18 holes, and actually 4 hours is a blessing because it's more like 5.5 depending on where you're playing. But this day and age, so he was looking for other options. And, this was something that he was working on at the time as, somebody who had just gotten out of school, he's got his first job and he wants to play the game. But again, his time is valuable. So this is something else. And I guess that, again, especially for the younger generation, as they step into the market, the working marketplace, or maybe they're finishing up their degrees, are very limited for their time. So this gives them an avenue or another outlet to be able to add golf to their repertoire, but without having to consume a lot of additional time, or they can stretch it to the time that is convenient for them. Your thoughts there?
Yeah, no, I would agree, because I'm like, as a college student, I cannot afford 4 hours just to play a round of golf. Maybe some people can, but like personally, student life, work life, it's hard to balance. So it definitely helps if I sneak in a quick round and have a coach or someone who can like caddy coach at the same time for me, just for a few hours. Like 90 minutes is fine. But it goes hand in hand where, like, let's say if I or a coach had canceled, then having a next best option for me, like a backup list, all of that comes in handy because, like I said earlier, everyone's schedule is different and it could be a little bit tight. So it just comes in handy where I guess if like a coach can only make it for an hour instead of 4 hours, like you can make an agreement and then the student can play for the remaining 3 hours if they choose to play for that long. All of that. Right. And then for the coach, they can just be paid for that hour. And so it definitely goes hand in hand. And, like, you can book individuals by time and the location. You can set all of that and communicate with each other easily instead of, like, it being a little bit uncomfortable, like, through text and having that whole explanation. But with the app, it's, like, all preset, like 1 hour. That's it. It's all one and done.
Yeah, I think that's a great approach. So, Mark, as we sort of tie all the loose ends up here and wrap it up into a nice bow, number one, how can people get more information? And is the app currently available in both Android and Apple versions or iOS version right now? And if not, when will they be available? And I'm talking obviously about MPRUV Golf, because I know you're working on some of the other sports as well to unpack a little bit later this year. But is it available now? And based on what you have compiled, is it something that is obviously growing across the United States? But where is it available now? I know the app is obviously available anywhere, but with what you've got right now, is it more localized in your area in Kansas and maybe a few other markets, or is it pretty much available now across the U.S.?
Yeah, absolutely. So it is. We have an Android and an iOS version. So to give you a little backstory, we released the beta version at the Kansas City Golf Show February 24th. From there, we took kind of like a proof of concept modeling for Kansas City. We have obviously strong community roots here and a lot of deep relationships with the courses and the coaches. And the idea was meeting with them over the course of the last month to say what works, what doesn't work, what needs to change. What can we do to make this experience better for both you and the student's perspective? So we've done that. We've done that over the last, 30 days. And as of 2 weeks ago, we decided to launch nationwide. So the app is available everywhere. give it some time. What I would say is that it's a very new product, that, the idea of building a marketplace is that both sides of the pillars have to grow together, students and coaches. Our idea is to prescriptively launch this in unique subset markets, meaning we want to take this to Phoenix, Scottsdale next. We have a relationship with a gentleman that owns 3 or 4 courses there to help us with that lead into the market, and then from there obviously go to Orlando area, Dallas, Austin, SoCal, Chicago, Vegas, all these other premier areas. But the app itself was built scaled nationwide. So we have venues loaded in every single city in the U.S. with a plan to go globally by the end of 2024, I think. So at any point right now, if you're outside of the Kansas City market and you want to request a lesson, I'd say try it out. And if you don't get a lot of coach responses right off the bat, don't give up on it. We're still a brand new product, and, us changing the way that lessons are handled and, improving the processes takes a little bit of time. So bear with us,
Definitely. And I'll certainly, reach out to a lot of the professionals. I have obviously a pretty good list from across the U.S. and some even up in Canada and whatnot, but I'll certainly make this aware from the coach's standpoint and get them to certainly take a serious look at it and see if it's right for them. But it sounds like a great opportunity. So where can they go? What's the website that they can go to get more information and certainly to investigate things a little bit further?
Yeah, absolutely. It's MPRUVGolf.com. So MPRUV golf.com. We'll take you straight to, our business, our goals, our mission, our values, and then availability to download the app straight from the website. So some cool things, too, for anybody listening who's thinking about building a business as a coach. We've got some unique tools coming in the next 3-4 weeks that allow you to take videos of your students, draw, edit, make notes on it, send it through the app. Again, this is completely free. There's no subscription charge for this. The way that our program works is we essentially take a small management fee once the lesson is complete. So set your rate however you want it, whatever your rate is. The student books it. We'll make sure that we take the money from the student first through our partner Stripe, so that way you're not out any money. You can set unique cancellation policies to where if a student cancels within an hour that you're not completely out. And then with that, we'll give you tools to manage your business. So the analytics as far as how many times you've bid versus how many times they've booked. That way, if you need to adjust pricing, you can. How many students engage with your profile or videos. Just an entire way to manage your business completely free. It's a subset of a transaction fee that comes out of the total cost of the lesson. So, build your rates accordingly and get exposed to a marketplace of students to help grow the game.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic model to have because, again, there's so much opportunity here really from both sides. I like the fact that, and it was music to my ears, that it's not a subscription model. I've seen that happen too many times. I know you can certainly do that and it can be profitable, but more often than not, with so much out there on the market right now, I think the way that you've approached this, I think is right on. I can see it growing and developing. So, I think it's smart. I think,
Yeah, so
I think it's a smart.
Might not like to hear that, but it's not about the money, right? It is like it is in general because we're business people, but it's more about growing the game to us. And Ann knows this, and that's the whole reason Ann came on to the company, is because our whole idea is how do we grow it?
Yeah, I can tell you from personal experience, if you put out a great product, the money takes care of itself. If you're providing a great product or service, the money takes care of itself. If you focus solely on, I understand how the bean counters and the investors, and if you're listening, by the way, I get it. I've been on both sides. But again, if you're putting out a sound, solid product or service, it's like wildfire. The word of mouth will get out there, and as long as everything is tight and whatever, which it sounds it is, you'll have no problem in recouping whatever investments have been put out. So, well, Mark and Ann, thank you very much. Ann, again, it was a pleasure having you back on the show as well, and I appreciate your thoughts and input. And Mark, much continued success with not only MPRUV Golf, but obviously MPRUV Sports as it continues to develop. And feel free to reach out anytime. I'm more than happy to help any way that I can and perpetuate. I think it's a great idea.
Ted, thanks so much. We appreciate the opportunity to come on and talk about what we're doing.
That sounds good. You guys have a great weekend, and thank you for joining me tonight on Golf Talk Live.
All right, you as well. Thanks, everybody.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, that was my special guest, Mark Lukenbill, founder and CEO of MPRUV Sports and Golf, and Anh-Dao, who is their head of coaching and community. As I mentioned, she was a co-Evans Scholar of the Year last year in 2022 and went up through that program there and obviously has now become a part of their team. My apologies for any technical issues in the beginning. It appeared that I had somehow disconnected my mic, so you probably missed a few minutes of the initial introduction for the two of them, so my apologies to both them and to you. But most of the interview, other than a few minutes in the beginning, will be in its entirety in the recorded version when you go back. So again, thank you to Mark and Anh-Dao, and also John Hughes and Jamie Leno-Zimron for joining me on the Coach's Corner panel earlier this evening. Be sure to check out all of the shows, and as I mentioned, if you want to hear that interview with Ann, she was on last season. If you go to blogtalkradio.com/Golf Talk Live and just scroll down to the on-demand section, and if you go into last season, I think it was towards the end of last season, if I'm not mistaken, that she was on when she was the Evans Scholar of the Year. There were two of them actually on the show at that particular time, but you can hear more of her interview and a little bit more of her story if you want to do that. But go there, and there's all the previously recorded shows are there, and tonight's will be there momentarily after the show. But on that note, thank you, everybody. God bless, and have a great week, and I will see you next week here on Golf Talk Live. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thanks for joining us. We hope you enjoyed this week's broadcast of Golf Talk Live. We'd like to thank this week's Coach's Corner panel, and a special thank you to tonight's guest. Remember to join Ted every Thursday from 6 to 8 p.m. Central on Golf Talk Live. And be sure to follow Ted on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you're interested in being a guest on Golf Talk Live, send Ted an email at ted.golftalklive@gmail.com. This has been a production of the iGolf Sports Network.